Well, hello, hello. So yeah, I am pretty over all that stuff. That even Virginia Giuffre was talk about like the worst stuff, and it's like, yeah, there's the worst stuff. Thank you. I'm not saying people should be forcibly raped or anything assayed. Um, There's the weird stuff that they left in the movie Eyes Wide Shut that I'm like I see it and I'm like, look, y'all got other problems and whatever. It's just like, the other day someone brought their like teenage daughter in the sauna with like, a really short skirt, and it's like, okay, whatever. um, Thanks for raping me with your kids into my adulthood and, doing the weird psychological warfare, turning the child protection into a weapon and for the child molesters. And it's to the point where they're like, it literally in South Park, that BP episode where they were like doing too much drilling and they're like, what's the solution? More drilling. And then it's like the same thing with the molestation. They're like, what's the solution? More molestation. We'll give the mob something, and we'll fucking, roofie possess them and roofie molest them, and we'll start, acting weird around them when they're a child, but nobody's going to really know that because, we just know people really when they're like an adult, right? Who do you all know, right? Adults, right? Mostly. So, right? And I'm just not into, that. I'm like, okay, fine. There's like some people that, some families that partake in some of the lighter stuff, like whatever. Um, some people, cross the line or blur the lines or whatever, however you want to say, gray areas. Um, and yeah, I'm not looking to participate in it either. So, I get people like offering or trying to entrap because I just get it, the full blast of the psychological warfare, uh, the weaponization of it. Um, So yeah, I'm pretty over it. But no, I'm not like, if I have kids and I'm like lucky enough and fortunate enough to see them as teenagers, um, I'm not gonna like have them do the maybe what Candace Owens does. I don't know, like her types, the child protectors and the Chris Hansons, and we're gonna lure in adults and everything, and we're gonna like, I mean, technically they're looking for consent and everything, but whatever. We're just gonna like shame them sexually for this big show for everybody and not really solve the problem, but kind of act like the janitor cleanup crew and get our kids to dress like sluts and shit, and we'll have them touch themselves around adults and everything instead of ever sexually educating our children. Probably before they hit puberty. You should prepare them. Fuck. And that makes everybody uncomfortable because you're like, no, you got to wait until like, pretty much like the last years of education for that. And it's like, no, no, what? Huh? And then yeah, there's like some people where it's like, dude, you know how they're like, rounding up like all these other people's families and throwing them into the very abusive, like criminally abusive, child prostitution services, or sorry, I meant child protective services. Um, and I'm like, okay, well, why don't you guys just like leave an area for them to like do it? I guess, like the new Israel in at the Rothschild Island or like the tip of Argentina or some shit. Like, yeah, stop burning down Argentina's homes and lands, and maybe we'll just like give you some land so you stop being little shits. And then there you go. F your children over there and leave us others out of it. Right, right. I think that's like the cleanest solution, right now, because it's like literally everywhere. Like they have bred generations. People don't know. Like this isn't just like some recent thing. This is like, for the founding of America and the fake history and the destroyed civilizations and the history that you just don't know about. This has been going on for a really, really, really long, long, long time. And it's everywhere, and they're, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna like worry about the worst stuff like the eating of the babies and the like non-consensual breeding with aliens and just all this weird shit that people just like wouldn't believe, right? You know, because they all been trained, you know, that the world is very dull and none of this amazing, you know, shit happens across, you know, Earth here. And the aliens are already here. People are like, you know, I saw a video today. It was like, you know, I'm getting kind of sick of it. So yeah. But I saw a video today, and they're like, "Oh, we released the Voyager, and it had the discs on it. And what if we don't want aliens to find us?" And it's like, dude, you already found. You already found. Like, there's a lot of, you know, but that's the big secret, you know. And yeah, so and there's some good ones and there's some bad ones, and it seems like there's a bunch of demonic ones, demonic aliens or things that look like, you know, and behave like demons, you know, of the alien variety, kind of, you know, as the supreme government of all the other governments, you know, is what it kind of, you know, looks like. And I avoided another trap with like, look, I'm kind of realigning and everything as I have been for a few years now, but I don't want to be no deep state bitch. So I was like, oh well, and I can't do the evil things that are, you know, secretly required to be president. So, you know, just like Marjorie Taylor Greene and some of the other ones, you know, you don't become part of the system to like change it. You got to do it from the outside, and that's what I'm doing. I'm remaining outside, so I'm avoiding all these traps, and good for me. I'm struggling with finding motivation to write my book, which isn't like I'm not the only one. Project Monarch or MK Ultra that this has happened to. So I am ordering new equipment here and a microphone and a video camera, so maybe I could stream and get some projects, some realigned projects going. I would like to make a homestead. I see that awesome chick, Statements by Alex. I am working on my bad habits, by the way, and I don't have that many of them, but I still smoke and you know, the weed has to go because it is a motivation killer. Although it was very helpful for a time in my life where I suffered from PTSD, not knowing it, and instead of being insane acting or just odd acting, totally sober, I would smoke some weed and calm the fuck down, and then people be like, "Wow, you're you know, you're totally normal when you're high, Chris, but when you're not high, you kind of like off the charts, you know." And but now, like, you know, I'm in a different era in my life. I don't really need it as much. And I need to work on that habit and the social media too. That's why I bought some new equipment so I could unplug from the Windows and YouTube Matrix and all the Google stuff, which is replacing this just kind of laptop that, you know, it's just a really low end laptop. It's totally enough for me to get my book done. But if I'm not going to work on the book, I might as well step it up to something where I think I could stream safely. Um, and that's what I'm going to do. But I don't want to get people to like so hooked into the Matrix too. So I don't want to, you know, they're going to punish me for not making videos regularly for the system, you know, but whatever. Maybe I'll set up a Patreon and everything. I would like to build a homestead. I was speaking of Statements by Alex. That sounds so nice. But I'm not like looking for no like, you know, secret, like, you know, like occult stuff. Like, I'm just like, look for legit things. I'm not trying to mess around with nobody's underage children, you know. They did send me like, you know, a 21-year-old neighbor and everything, and then I'm like, you know, she is kind of still too young. It's like, you know, what happens when I'm like 60 and she's, you know, 40, you know, and yeah. So, and that'll get even odder when I'm like 80 and she's like 60, you know, like. Anyway, I prefer someone from my peer group. I appreciate everyone trying to rape me, you know, with your children, or not trying to, actually doing it. Um, and thanks, I guess. I don't know. I'm tired of being angry though about things. And that's, I've been angry for a long time, didn't know why. Wetting the bed was definitely a dead giveaway for sexual abuse. Um, so, so anyway, and I want to talk about my side of the story and everything because it's like, it's insane. It's insane. It's totally what they would do to like Jesus. I'm not like here to harm children, but then that, the child protectors are like rabid sometimes, and but they're like that on purpose because some of the child sex traffickers act like the child protectors, and they're like, yeah, and they like to steer the mob in certain ways. So they're like, it gets kind of Monty Python sometimes too, and they're just like, burn them, you know, or you said Jehovah, you said it, blasphemer, throw the rocks. Um, yeah. So, but yeah, the only, Um, I'm just going to teach my kids, just like a little earlier than everyone else is comfortable with about all sorts of weird, stuff. And that's going to have to be some, basic sexual things. And when you chase these things, it's not really nice, you might be better off with like a vampire, instead of like chasing money. I might make weird comparisons like that and shit. Like, yeah, I know. Well, like a vampire, I don't even think that there's like some that like operate just by like cutting you like a little bit and sucking like a little bit of blood, or working at a blood bank or something, something ethical. It doesn't make them bad. It sounds like they're trying to do things right and consensual and be like, okay, I'm like a little weird, and I know you think the world is normal and vampires only exist in movies, but I'm a vampire and I need to drink blood. You have weird conversations with people, and there's places definitely to do that, like online. Um, and there's people that I think wrongfully hunt them. They're just like rabid. They're like, and they're just like very general. But then they'll do the eye for a life, instead of an eye for an eye thing. And then when people come around blowing up and genociding Jesus's people and his children, um, they're like, not so much an eye for an eye anymore, and it's like, are you just like emotionally upset, like, because you guys don't do anything, with that shit? And then, when it comes to, they're like, it's the worst stuff ever, and it's like, you know what, I could think of a lot worse things actually, and I try not to because I don't want to manifest that stuff. But those things do exist, and I'm glad. Like I saw a little bit more of Virginia Giuffre's, videos and her speaking when she was live. And yeah, she's totally right. And there is worse stuff, and this like messing around sexually shit. Yeah, it's bad and everything, but there's a lot worse shit, darker shit. This is just like the surface level stuff. This is like the surface level stuff, and you got to get into like breeding against their will, being injected with things to change the DNA to make the breeding possible. Just I think there's enough humans running around here that you guys could just consensually, there's some space aliens looking for some, breeding volunteers who wants to do that for the humans. And I'm sure you could find plenty of consenting humans to fucking do that, you know? But I'm not understanding, like, see, I don't understand rape, like, um, and so I mean, I understand it's like a power dynamic, so it's like a power thing, and you're violating the person, and that's, yeah, and they get off on it, I understand that, but I'm not necessarily one of those types. Um, Even though people pretend to be, and it's like, yeah, the people put me in weird situations, like the sex traffickers and then the child protectors both, because I have to deal with all of it, right? And and they put me in situations where I have to like be with their children alone or something, and it's like, yeah, it was never awkward unless they made it awkward. Where they're getting like literal children to like feel themselves up around me, and I think we all know who that is, right? The Isra's allies. Um, so yeah, thanks, I guess, but no thanks. You know. Anyway, and I'm pretty much over it. So I see it. There was that, I mentioned in a previous video. There was that chick that had her daughter or granddaughter. That she's 13 years old. And here's the picture of the Dalai Lama too. She's with the Dalai Lama, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, whatever. All right, you're doing your weird eyes wide shut, whatever. I just tired of people trying to control my emotions. Look at this over here. Look at that over there. Okay, well, that's your family's business, I guess, right? And I'm moving the fuck on. And oh yeah, speaking of the homestead thing, like I was talking about that with statements by Alex. Like I would like to do a homestead or commune thing, but you know who's going to be like? It's going to be like some like Fed or some definitely a Fed, right? It'll be my own government because it's like all demonic and it's like ran by demons and shit, or nearly, and they're going to come in there and they're going to be like, all right, like my wife's about to give birth. Who wants to eat, the baby with me? And just start doing weird shit, and they'll just start doing weird shit to break everything up, to be like, oh, look what's going on over here. I don't know if actually that, I definitely was abused and groomed and everything like David Koresh, but I'm more self aware and successful. Um, so I don't even know if that's actually what occurred. Maybe it is. Maybe the stuff that did occur there did really occur there. If it did, I'm like, so everyone else could have their freedoms, and everyone has that odd situation over there because you guys try to control that shit, but then it's totally used against you. And then you get people trying to do things right, and they're like, oh, we got to take their children away and put them to be sex trafficked and traumatized and everything, and sexually abused, and have their adrenochrome sucked from them and shit, and roofies everywhere, that's going to be a forever problem. Um, so yeah, so I was thinking about making a channel talk about, being a Project Monarch and MK Ultra, and there's a lot of videos out there that I've seen that have been really helpful for me, and so I definitely could reach a lot of people because I am free, in a sense, and I'm also super digitally suppressed. So anyway, um, well, people don't like me talking about like better space alien agreements or treaties. Is really what I think a lot of your problems boils down to on Earth here. And there's a lot of covering up of that stuff. That, it's like, no, it's just these governments are totally working separately and independently of each other. It's like, no, they're all working together. Some are playing, the heroes and villains, and that's definitely my country going around terrorizing everybody. Like, saying they regime change everyone but themselves. How about, regime change yourselves? Time's coming. Where people should have a right to take their government back when it's a bunch of people that don't fucking do shit. And I don't care if you guys set it up for a big lie and everything. People believe in the government and they should have that shit fulfilled. It hasn't, not all governments are bad, but you've destroyed a lot of the fucking governments that were good. you know, um, and so you can't quite go back to your Tartarian ways because there's not many giants left, but you can still put art and start building things in better ways. Pillars and art everywhere, even the gutters are artwork. Um, you guys don't do that now. They encouraged you to breed like mad so they could harvest you fast, and then they want you dependent on them, but then there's too many of you, and then you got to decide whether you're going to fucking revolt or accept this prison bullshit, even though your free will is being robbed from you with these all these false frequencies. You know, it's pretty bad. They do definitely some mental masturbation, the evil side. They're like, look, with all this, as long as we tell them in symbols that they can't read or understand, or, not a significant portion of them, then that means consent. And it's like, it's definitely weird. It's definitely weird, and I have the weird distinction. Essentially, like what? Someone turns 18 and they can fucking date like some 50-year-old all of a sudden. There's no like building up to that. So when someone's like, especially a young adult with an almost adult, I really don't care. I really don't care about that stuff. Those are just almost made up problems. That's their business. Some families do some weird stuff. I just feel that like if you let them do their weird shit, and then you could have your shit, and then there, not everyone's being kidnapped in child protective services. Should probably do something like more locally though. Like anyone, any of these neighbors able to help, like local neighbors, like a few houses up, or on the same block or something, a block or two away, you know, and keep it more local, you know, and yeah, and yeah. So I don't think that's why they look to like try to live forever, because they definitely know a reckoning's coming, and they might avoid certain things in this lifetime because certain ways they play the game, I guess. Um, but it definitely comes up. It definitely comes catches up with them at some point. Um, so people are like, they get away with it, and it's like, well, maybe in this dimension they get away with it, but in others they don't. So, um, so there's that. And yeah, I just want to talk about all this weird stuff. I do watch some videos, maybe do some like reaction videos. I don't know how you guys would like those. Get a better camera than this fucking phone here, um, and just maybe make my videos a little cleaner, and have like an AI like edit, do the clipping for me, just like a lot of dead air and stuff, and a lot of people I think do that already, and that's a good way to use AI. I'm not trying to like covertly dominate and control the world. But yeah, it's all these leaders that are fucking working together, obviously working together, and they're all working together, and even some of the enemies seem, because this kidnapping the president, it seems like a big thing, but also like he seems like a CIA asset. There's some stuff behind that, and it's like, God damn it! And even I was groomed. I was groomed. I was meant to play some entertainment or leadership role, and I'm still aiming for that, but I don't want to be no lizard person bitch. So I guess I'm on the Robin Hood side of things. I don't think everyone in government, especially cops, like, I don't think all cops are douchebags, but like, come on now, like, you going around and you're taking people's children because Fed said you got to, and there you're feeding the fucking child sex trafficking machine, and you're all like, we're not a part of it, and it's like, yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. Whether you like it or not. And it's like, following orders, and if you don't, you're going to lose your job, or maybe you get another job at the police department. I don't know. I mean, they do like murders and shit, and then they get like a job like at the next county over, or whatever. So anyway, I mean, I don't think they're all douchebags, but definitely, you're feeding the machine, and I kind of I don't know where, to draw these hard lines. I know you have, your standards, which I'm not trying to violate. I know I got sexually abused to be something that I'm not. That it really only exists in other people's heads. That's the big illusion and trick. It only exists in other people's heads. People get me to, hit on someone that looked like my first girlfriend, like my first love ever. Um, these things aren't that impressive. I don't try to walk around without my glasses anymore because, someone's going to just like, sideswipe me because I can't fucking, everything's like blurry, like 5 feet or more from my eyes. I can see up close nicely. Um, but if I take my glasses off like I have now, I can't really see much more than a few feet in front of me without it being really blurry. But anyway, all these little tricks and everything, and it's just a bunch of assholes weaponizing child protection, and I think it's all just weaponized, and it mainly serves the child pedophiles, mainly. And you do. They're like, we'll just molest extra, just like in the BP South Park episode. We'll drill more, and that's the solution. And so they molest more, and that's why nothing's done at the Catholic Church because they like want it. They want it. They need to give the mob something, and a good way to make extra decoys is by molesting extras. That's just how things are, sadly, you know. And and yeah, so but maybe we could focus on the worst stuff and better space alien agreements to kind of get to the core of the issues here, and then you'll have less problems. I think, I'm pretty sure, but you're going to have to allow for some uncomfy situations. Like, why did that brother and sister couple that had that doctor provide his own sperm to everyone that got a donation from him instead of thinking it was like from a particular male, like the woman was selecting and everything? It was no, it was just the same doctor's sperm doing his little demonic, I'm going to spread my seed and everybody fucking bullshit. This whole community and the whole world. Yeah, and some people are like that, and some people do that, and they got totally violated, and then they hooked up, and they didn't know they were brother and sister until like some DNA test later, and then the social shaming of it, was like, it's like, okay, well, good. I'm glad you're not a Cersei and Jamie Lannister. Isn't that interesting? All these spectrums and shit on this end of the spectrum, on that end of the spectrum, yeah, because that's like there's a lot of parents with their teens and everything that like their kid worshiping false idols and all these fucks. I don't think they appreciate having their kid roofied, but if the roofies was left out of it, then you know, and then their asses are like whatever, you know. And I distinguish between that. I distinguish between consent and non-consent. And people are like, I think you can consent. All right, and I don't know what age that is exactly, but I'm definitely talking about some of the lighter stuff that they left in the movie, Eyes Wide Shut. Um, and yeah, so I mean, it's gotten me to think about it a whole lot, and I'm like, man, I can't just, like two creatures want to hook up, whatever, that's like their business, and but people being forced and against their will, those are two totally different, scenarios in my eyes. And people are like, you gotta hate it all. And it's like, no, I just don't. I'm sorry. And I'm not trying to participate in it either. Okay. So, thank you. I think my neighbor here is nice. She's really lovely. I hope she finds someone, to help her out in life, and to grow together and to thrive together. Um, she is a little young, even at 21. It's like, yeah, I mean, I guess, like, what are we like at some sex party thing or something that I don't even know if I would be even doing that even, now. Um, I have a hard time with sex anyway. I mean, it sounds hot and everything, but I just have a hard time. And people known this since I was a child anyway. So, yeah, I wish her well though. I didn't mean to, throw any bad magic her way. I don't know. She got into an accident a few months ago, and I'm like, oh, and I had like a little emotional outburst a couple months ago, and I don't know if those are connected. But yeah, so yeah, I just like okay, I see it everywhere, and I'm like, okay, well, the lighter stuff is like whatever. I'm going to focus on the harder issues and or the bigger issues, maybe the harder ones. I don't know. It's all perspective and whatnot. So people would say what they went through was the worst. Just like, I got like roofie possessed and everything when I was a child. Possessed most of my life. Developed a lot of bad habits, a few of which I'm struggling with now. I did really well in comparison to so many others. I mean, that like bit the dust and like fucked up really hard. Even when I was at the low vibration and I would have the Satan out, or I was Sataning out and everything, I wasn't that evil or, dark. Just like, people were harassing me with noises and shit, and then I start dragging metal around, because I'm like, well, fuck you. You're going to harass me with noises. I'm going to harass you with noises. Fuck you. And that was cute and creative. And I still have the magic. I really think, I got rid of the possession, which, as Mercury, I don't mind channeling from time to time when need be. I don't need an outright possession. That seems a little violating to my free will and all that. And trying to hijack, me and my divine mission and all that. So to try to twist it and pervert it into their stuff. So it's just like the Star of David symbol. Like, I don't think it's an evil symbol, but definitely evil has hijacked that symbol, and it's hijacked it for a while. And so I don't think these symbols are good or bad, but they're used by good and bad people alike. So there could be a totally evil, baby eating fucking bitch, on your block that wears the cross, you know, and then there could be just like some I mean, there's some good Satanists out there that act like the stereotypical Christian, all right, and they're like, no, Satan isn't bad and blah blah blah, and it's about love and da 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 da, and no, I don't want to eat babies and da 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 da. And it's like, yeah, yeah, well, that's the Satanism I would agree with. Good. Not the BB Yahoo one, where it's like, they're like, yeah, you could be with a 3-year-old. It's like, what? I don't, what, huh? Who the hell was teaching kids to feel themselves up around me? Oh, I see. I see. Who teaches their kids to go and harass Jesus' people and Palestinians? Oh yeah. They do that around America too, and make a bunch of mass shooters, and then they sue people with like blood libel, like how dare you tell the truth about this stuff, Alex Jones, and these actors and stuff for the show, just like we're seeing with the Kyle Rittenhouse fucking trial, and that was AI. Yeah, a lot of it's made up, just entirely made up. Like your money system is made up. It's like, man, fucking, you might just give everyone enough to live, and then what everyone has stuff, so then there isn't as much chaos. But they got y'all to breed like crazy. So, and then we can't even. Can we think of like nice solutions? Like, how about, okay, you know, y'all got taught to breed like monkeys and ejaculate a whole lot. So just ejaculate more in mouths, around chests, or in butts instead of vaginas. I mean, it could be even your woman's butt or something. I'm just saying, like, instead of impregnating all the time, because some of your rulers on the planet think there's too many of you now. So because they made you dependent. But then there's too many, babies sucking at the titties here, and it's like, da 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 da. And then it's like a game of Warcraft, so then we got to dump this army, to make a new one because our character limit, is at its limit, or whatever the fuck is in their mind. But the new space alien agreements that would give light to humans, understanding that you're not the only ones here, and that there's some fucked up places on Earth that are meant to invite humans in so they could be hunted, and that would be a lot of your national parks. And they're like, all right, we're going to put a trail here, and we're going to tell people to fucking follow the trail, but whoever doesn't follow the trail is fair game, and have like rules like these set up. Or I mean, they stray more than 300, 400 yards from the trail, something like that. You know, I could totally see that. And yeah, there are some creatures that do hunt humans, so watch it out there. And they're not necessarily bears. I think bears are really peaceful. You don't want to mess with their kid. Like coming around a corner and their kid is right there, and like the parents could fucking go off on you, like oh my god. But I did see another video where um, some guy was like feeding a starving bear, and then he brought his mate and then their baby around, and he didn't want to go out there. And then I guess later he was out there, and then they kind of snuck up on him and forced the him to meet their cub and shit. So like, unless that situation was like, oh, we're trying to get you to meet our kid, yo. We're trying to say thank you and hello and everything, and that's nice. Like people could connect like that. Yeah, and I wouldn't say that was necessarily dangerous because the bears knew. They're like, okay, we were starving. All right, you gave us food, and you saved our lives, and we're going to show you our kid now. And that's just, I mean, that's almost what like humans would do and shit. Like there'd be like some homeless guy off the streets, and and people helped him on his feet, and then he made a family, and then those people ended up being friends, and then the guy introduces them to their child and shit, of course. So yeah. So I'm just kind of tired of talking about all the sexual stuff. There's a lot of stuff. And if they can't blackmail you, they'll make it look like they blackmailed you. So like when I was in my 20s and I got roofied, I was raped recently too in my place. So us targeted individuals live weird lives. So I think that was done by an adult, but who knows? I mean, who knows who ejaculated in my ass? Maybe it was like some 15-year-old teenager, some gay teenager, you know. Um, but they take pictures with you, which is what I think happened in my 20s, which would be like, the early 2000s. So, um, but that's not blackmail. But I could see how they could manipulate people, and all they got to do is just get their bots to be like, "Oh no, he's totally like done for," and get people to think that, and then be like, "Oh yeah, he's totally done for, Bob. Yeah, yeah, Sam. Yeah, he's totally done for." Rah, rah, rah. It's like, yeah, yeah. I mean, um, I'm aware of the tactic, and I am heading it off at the pass. So yeah, you guys gotta be more prepared and not be so easily manipulated. I think a number one rule of the revolution should be hold the line. The always be aware of the infiltrators and the mimics and hold the line. Um, and try not to get manipulated. If you need a little more time, that's better than, getting all caught up. I've given some really good advice and I guess some bad advice. I'm like, I don't know, how do you battle the demons? I guess, maybe use a Ouija board. Maybe that was the best advice. You know, some ways to summon angels or something. Just we have too many demons running around here. We need to have some angel summoners and the angelic hordes released. Um, yeah, so yeah, we need to change people's mindsets too. And there's a lot of good people online, and I was thinking about joining the online thing in a better fashion than this shaky ass phone here. Not the best color, like looks like it gets the color almost right, but then goes kind of purple or some shit. I don't know. But I'm trying to use normal condensant bulbs around my fucking apartment here. Because I don't trust those LED ones. And they're not as good for your eyes, too. And I already stared at enough screens and shit for like all my life. You could definitely tell like who's stared at a lot of computer screens, and those people that wear glasses. You know, because things are getting better. I don't know about that. But I mean, things are getting better, but things are getting worse. I think you know what? I think there's a power transition that's going to occur, and the evil is going to have less power than the good. And they're upset about it. And they're doing everything that they can to be like, no, it's going to be our way or the highway. But when you make these spiritual deals and everything, then it doesn't matter if you brainwashed the masses or edited history. Jesus' second coming already came, some of them, say. It can't be you or anyone else. You know, um, maybe, all those lies are bullshit and the universe really knows and the spiritual world really knows, you know, and they know that it knows. So it doesn't matter if they lie or trick a bunch of people. And that's why that Project Looking Glass got like shut down. I'm pretty sure. Because they're like, all the, it doesn't matter what we do. It all converges at this one thing. Well, we'll pour resources out of that and it's everything else to fuck, anything up. Like CERN and, do timeline splits and, all sorts of fucking send people back in time so you can edit something about, the future, and and yeah. So but it's not going to make a difference. So people could rest easy with that. I mean, they could still do a lot of evil. I still need to get on the stage and start talking. So that's what I was thinking about doing, is getting a new equipment here, a new computer. I was going to start off with Linux, get rid of that Windows bullshit. Um, um, I don't really have a desire for that many video games either. Um, Although it would be nice to just tap in, instead of watching, some, video or whatever. It would be nice to just like, I like look. I would like to play the Final Fantasy VII remake. I remember reserving a copy of Final Fantasy VII for the PlayStation back in like 1996 or something, like the fall of 1996. Um, Maybe the end of summer. I forget. Ask end of summer, beginning of fall. Anyway, um, it was a long time ago. That was a really fun game. I would really like to play that. I think it would be a good manifestation for you folks. Also, I think Doom, the 2016 Doom version, is a good, beating up a bunch of demons. That ain't bad. All right. Um, so yeah, but I don't want to get stuck in video game land either. It's like, look, I watch a cartoon every now and then, I guess, but there's no more Saturday morning cartoons with multiple bowls of poisonous cereal that I didn't know was poisonous. You know, And yeah, so I want to maybe make some videos so I could raise money to be a legit like nonprofit. I know they're like the biggest scam and everything is nonprofits, and it's like fuck. Well, the one thing I could do is just talk about it, openly. And I guess if I do make an organization, then everything open and transparent, and there you go. I'm not looking to raise money to like scam people. I would like to help out homeless people, and do that with a homestead or commune. I don't really know the difference too much, although I know like one is more like Jim's Jonesy, and David Kreshe. And I'm not looking to do that either. I'm not looking to be no big leader. I know I'm like a hot a cult target. I'm a little less hot now because I've gotten rid of possessions and hijackings, but I'm still hot. But I would like to, work up to Steward of America. Sorry, Steward of America, and then help people with housing too. Where I can. Almost like a Jimmy Carter, but I don't want to be a deep state little bitch. So I need to just readjust, sorta. And then there you go. I'd still like to work on the book, or I haven't touched that thing in months, guys. I haven't given up on it completely. It's just I don't have the motivation to write about my early childhood, and that's the one thing that's hanging me up. And I wish I could have someone in my life to maybe help me along with this. Also, I understand the value in doing it everything alone and whatnot. I need to watch out because there was a Zionist infiltrator in my life, and she was like offering to help me with the writing the book. But I didn't want her influence. I didn't want her influence. They infiltrate, influence, manipulate, and I'm tired of it. So it's going to have to be a non-Zionist if I get help from anybody. People are like, ask AI, but then that AI is built by a Zionist. And anyway, I don't have a nice relationship like some others have, with other AIs. I don't have that, so. Anyway, I've done ranted for nearly an hour, like 47 minutes here. So yeah, I guess I was gonna go, and you guys have a lovely night or day or whatever it is to you. And peace the fuck out.